This is the Nebraska Shootaround podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Bigelow, the men's basketball beat writer for Varsity, and joining me as always is my co-host, Jacob Bigelow. It's been a bit since we last talked on the mics here. Life got in the way a little bit this week, and I'm glad it did because instead of just recapping two kind of ho-hum losses, we get to talk about a really fun win for Nebraska.
Happy Keisei Tominaga Day to those who celebrate. We are back to our roots, doing a little after dark recording here on Sunday, February 5, just a few hours removed from Nebraska's 72-63 win over Penn State at Pinnacle Bank Arena. We were both in attendance, and just a mere 15 days after Nebraska went to State College and took an 11-point loss to these Nittany Lions, they turned the tables and win by 9 in Lincoln on the backs of a career-high day from the aforementioned Mr. Keisei Tominaga, who finished the day with a career-high 30 points on 12 of 18 shooting. He came out firing right away, and 5 of 10 from 3 boards, 1 assist, but there were only 2 guys in double figures, Keisei with 30 and Jamarcus Lawrence with 11 points, and that was enough to help propel Nebraska to a big conference win, to snap a 4-game losing streak, to protect home court, and to kind of change the discourse around the program that had been going on recently as we enter the home stretch.
Yeah, with the win, Nebraska, let's see, I'm back into the top 100 on KenPom, back up to 97. They are moved back up defensively from 50, I believe was the last I saw. They're back up to 47th now. But yeah, this game this was all about Keisei Tominaga, and like you said, we're recording this shortly after the game itself, so haven't had time to go back and rewatch the whole game like I typically do before one of these pods. But I had to go back and rewatch all of Keisei's buckets at the very least to get those fresh in my memory, and decided to do some note taking, some charting there to break down exactly how it happened, because man, that was a lot of fun to watch.
Yes, it was.
You mentioned how efficient he was. He gives the shooting stats there: 12 of 18, 5 threes, and which means 7 buckets inside the arc as well. And he got to the free throw line. It wasn't just a Keisei being hot. It's a Keisei torching Penn State every way possible. He had 3 unassisted buckets, 9 assisted, scored mid-range, had take to the rim, had a pull-up 3, and then a lot of catch and shoot, a lot of cut and catch and finishes. But and again, he mixed it up throughout the game. Just a phenomenally smart game for Tominaga. And Micah Shrewsbury mentioned it as well, just how hard it is to defend with a guy like Derek Walker initiating the offense. And going through, Derek, you actually guessed it, but Derek assisted 6 of Keisei's 12 buckets there. 9 of those buckets were assisted, like I said, and 6 of those were from Derek Walker playing point guard out of the top of the key. And just wanted to kind of paint the picture a little bit because, man, there are a few things like when Keisei gets on a heater. This is the hottest we've ever seen one of those heaters.
Yeah.
He topped his previous career high early in the second half, and then just kept on going. It was 23. I believe he got that twice. I think once his first year and then earlier this year in the Boston College game.
I mean, tied the career high on possibly the most Keisei Tominaga shot he could have possibly taken with that step back 3 in the corner. Very, very on brand. It should have either been that or the one that he pulled from the panhandle on the the logo on the court.
So I'm going to go through his buckets here to just kind of paint the picture, but I actually did some homework on that long near logo 3. But anyway, we'll get to that. Just a little teaser there. Right off the bat, and Keisei himself said this, asked, when did you feel like you're going to have a good day? Probably after the first bucket, he said. which he hit his first shot less than 2 minutes into the game, knocked down a three, ran off down screen. And this is, Jamarcus Lawrence even said, like, most of their plays, they run for Keisei. Like he's the primary option when they actually run a set because of the kind of shooter he is. And obviously we know Fred loves drawing stuff up to get three shots. Mm-hmm. But right off the bat, they ran Keisei off a down screen from Denham and received the pass from Derek Walker, who kind of faked like he was going to go set and make it a staggered screen, but just dove anyway. But Andrew Funk was chasing him, flew by as Keisei pumped and like got into shooting. It wasn't even a full pump fake. It's just he knows how dangerous he is, chasing from behind, ran right by, brought it back down, reloaded, and knocked it down. So right off the bat, that goes down. All right, he's feeling good about himself and never quite slowed down. Because the second bucket was probably maybe I was going to say probably the most ambitious of them, but there are a few that probably rise to that level. Kind of be tough ranking these, but the off of the Jamarcus Lawrence steal, saved it into Keisei beyond half court. Keisei pushes it ahead himself, got 1-on-2, attacks anyway, 1-2, splits the two defenders, and finishes inside hand, obviously his left strong hand, on the right side of the basket, kind of back over his head, just really tough bucket. Catches it front net rim.
The roll on that one too was one of the more ridiculous rolls I've ever seen. That was kind of the first, like he hit that three and then he attacked, and you, me, and our good friend Nick Sainert of 93.7 The Ticket, we all kind of looked at each other like, oh, yeah, it's one of those. we're getting this Keisei tonight.
Yep. And then his next three, and this is the one where Fred said at that point he was like, okay, we might be able to ride this a little bit tonight. So yeah, he got Derek in the post, kicked it out to Sam Grease on the wing, and Keisei just kind of chilling up near the logo, wasn't really moving anywhere, just kind of waiting to see what those guys were going to do. Sam kicks it back to him, probably thinking, all right, we'll reverse the ball, get it to the other side. Funk is playing like he's not below the 3-point line, he's above the 3-point line, but he's not coming out to it. So he just rose up and knocked it down. And to the best that I could figure out, I'm going to call it from Hiawatha, Kansas, because it was actually below the Nebraska border near the southeastern corner. And just kind of looking at the map, I think Hiawatha was probably the best guess for where that three actually came from.
You know, Keisei, JUCO product, might have played a game or two in middle of nowhere, Kansas, going on the road to face one of those Jayhawk conference teams. So, you know, might have been familiar territory for him. Back to his roots, shooting from middle of nowhere, Kansas.
So, and we're just getting started. So, like I said, it's hard to like power rank these based on the audacity of like he's taking that shot and he's hitting that shot. After that was and this is where it really started. Obviously, he's hit two tough shots already from deep, and everybody knows him as a shooter. So now this is when he started to take advantage of that reputation and of those early threes going in. Because this is a play they hit a few times where Derek Walker, top of the key, Keisei faked like he was going, like took a step like he was going to run up and like lift off a down screen from the guy on the wing. And Jalen Pickett bit on it hard and jumped hard the other way, and Keisei instead back cut, and Derek put it on the money for an easy layup. That happened a few times. But so now he scored on a a pump fake reload three, a drive to the rim 1-on-2, a catch and shoot shot from near half court, and a cut and a layup off a cut to the basket. So again, showing the whole arsenal right out of the gate. Next bucket. Speaking of whole arsenal, this is another different way. It's the pull-up jumper where he kind of set a screen and then popped out to take a handoff off Derek and looked to go run a pick and roll back for the middle of the floor. The defender jumped over the screen. So he just spun around and dribbled back the other way towards the baseline and pulled up from 15 feet. And knocked it down. So now add a pull-up mid-range jumper to all the other ways he scored already, and we're not even near halftime yet. Next time, another layup off a transition, kind of the floor never set. Seth Lundy, I guess, was the man in charge of him at that point, but Lundy never truly picks him up. Like Keisei's doing jumping jacks on the backside. They didn't make the skip pass. They either didn't look at him, didn't see him, or didn't want to. Sam put the ball down to Derek on the block, and Lundy's still like ball watching him. So Keisei, instead of staying weak side, cuts around Lundy to the rim. Derek dumps it off to him for a layup. Again, just so smart, perfectly. Just perfect play for that situation. Great read and really bad defense from Lundy. Again, dude's already hit 4 or 5 buckets there, and you're just not guarding him. Anyway, so another cut for a layup, and then got another 3. Top of the key, took a handoff from Denham Dawson. Funk, I don't know what Funk was doing. He was playing off, and then late tried to say switch to Lundy, but he didn't get there in time. Rose up, knocked it down. So again, a great read. Saw where the defense was, miscommunication, took advantage, made them pay for it. Another kind of catch and shoot 3, kind of off the handoff there. So there's the assist from Dawson. And then another layup, again, faking this time. So you got Derek top of the key. Keisei faked the back screen for Sam Griesel on the wing, and then cut himself to the rim, and Derek Walker put it on him. So again, just another read, a great read, slip to the basket, and Walker just every single time Keisei cut, he found him, put it right on the money, made an easy finish. And then again, the only took 1 trip to the free throw line. He actually missed one. Like, come on, Keisei, you're not supposed to miss free throws. I believe it was his 3rd miss of the season. Really hurting that percentage there. But same deal as the first cut, where faked like he was going to run off the down screen from the wing, back cut, and this time it was Funk who got beat. He bought the fake cut again and had to reach from behind and foul him to prevent the layup. So just again, smart. Then the next one. This is the career high tying one that you reference, the step back 3, where basically, like, go watch that whole possession. He was sprinting around. I don't know how many times around the court that he ran there, just running off screens, filling, cutting at somebody else, just never stopped moving on the possession. And eventually the ball goes down to Griesel on the post, and Funk turns his head just a little bit, and Keisei cuts from kind of top of the key to the wing, and Sam kicks it out to him. Funk recovered in time there. Keisei threw a pump fake. Funk stayed down on it, didn't bite on the pump fake, so Keisei dribbled right, stepped back, contested 3, falling sideways right in front of the bench, buried it. Like, geez, this dude is on a serious heater right now. And then this next one, I love it. At this point, you've got Cameron Winter on him, and he is face guarding Keisei. You know, this dude's been lighting you up all game. All right, we're not going to help off him. Stay tight. Winter is out tight on him in the corner, and just the slightest of head turns. Didn't turn already. I think it might have even just averting his eyes, looking up at the wing to see kind of what's coming. Immediately, Keisei read that and cut on him and left him in the dust. And Derek Walker again delivered on time, on target for the layup. So he's just torching them every way possible. Next, his final layup, Keisei gave the ball up to Sam on the wing. Ken ran off a back screen from Derek. So he's on the right side, passes to Sam on the wing, cuts off the screen from Derek at the free throw line, comes around to the backside. And then as Derek gets the ball back top of the key, then Keisei fakes like he's going to run off a down screen from Denham on the other side of the lane, and instead cuts back to the rim. And Derek, again, puts it on the money, lays it up and in. So he's just got these Nittany Lions, has their heads spinning at this point. Like, he's cutting left and right. Every time you think you know what you're going to do, he does the opposite, and just tore them apart. And then the final, this was like, oh yeah, sometimes it's just your day. Got a little bit of help from the officials on this one on a really bizarre play, but last bucket is 3 for 30. ran off a screen from Derek Walker and received the pass at the top of the key. Tried to rise up on the catch. Lundy is kind of chasing from behind, lost the ball, and the official on the sideline, like up on the play, signaled a tip for some reason. Lundy didn't get there in time. Like, he lost it before Lundy even got there. And as the ball is flying up in the air, Lundy flies by, and Keisei recovers it, like gets his feet behind the line, and then rises up and buries that one. In the live stats, like I tweeted a clip of this, Nebraska scorekeepers actually credited Andrew Funk with a block on the play and called it a missed 3 and an offensive rebound for Keisei. And Funk was the one guarding the passer, Denham Dawson. Didn't move his feet, just kind of reached out. Like, he wasn't close enough to actually touch the ball, but somehow got credited with the block on it. But that's the kind of game it was, where just the weirdest thing, completely just lost the ball, and it still comes back to him. The officials ignore it and rises up and knocks it down for 30.
Shout out Keith Kimball for calling a tip on that play. So
the only non-local official on the crew tonight, who shout out to John Higgins and Kip Kissinger, the other two Nebraska's most famous officials, and not a lot of fouls called in this game. It was actually 21 total fouls, including 6 on Nebraska. He had 6 fouls called on him the entire game. There are a lot of reasons for that besides the officials favoring Nebraska. But yeah, it was kind of a fun game to watch, where there was a lot of flow, runs back and forth. There were a few scoring droughts, but Keisei alone was worth the price of admission.
Absolutely. And then one more thing on the officials, and a shameless plug to our friend Matt at Husker Group Central for pointing out that 3 of the top 4 rated officials on KenPom were on the crew of this game, in Keith Kimball, John Higgins, and Kip Kissinger. Kimball 1, Higgins 3, Kip 4. So with that, may have also explained the flow of the game today at PBA. So yeah, like you said, 2 local products, and then I didn't realize Keith Kimball was the number 1 ref on KenPom. So that explains the free flowing game. But yeah, credit to Big Ten officials for not Big Ten officialing too hard today.
Yep, indeed. Got out of the way and just enjoyed the Keisei show. He scored 30 of their 72, but he did get a little help from some of the other guys. And Nebraska's second leading scorer was Jamarcus Lawrence, the guy who was apparently in tears after the loss on the road at Penn State. If you recall, he went 0 for 5 from the free throw line in that game. Only hit 1 or 2 buckets. And Hoiberg said he really took that hard. The team rallied around him, and here he is, nearly getting a double-double as a 6'3" guard with 11 points, 3 of 6 from 3, I believe it was. Or 3 of 4 from 3, 3 of 6 from the field. Hit a couple of clutch free throws late, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, and 0 turnovers in 30 minutes. And man, some of the shots he hit the first 3 of the game to get the point started, and then he hit a huge one late in the game. How many times have we seen Nebraska with a late lead and missing free throws, open the door, and the other team comes storming back to win that game? Well, Penn State in this one, Derek Walker missed a couple with 3 free throws, I think. I think missed 2 and then missed a front end of bonus as well, leaving the door open, and Penn State got it down to 6. And Jamarcus, Nebraska's running down the clock late, I think maybe 4 on the shot clock when he caught it. He's basically standing where Fred is, because they're on Nebraska's half, obviously, in the second half.
45 seconds left in the game, too. So.
Yeah. So imagine where Hoiberg normally stands near the front of the bench. That's where basically Lawrence was. He catches it, no hesitation, rises up and knocks it down, which is really important because Penn State answered with a 3 from Funk literally 5 seconds later. So if he had not hit that shot and you got Penn State going down, hit a 3, suddenly it's a 3-point game, and this thing gets a lot more complicated. But Lawrence hit that 3, so that pushed it to 9. Penn State's 3 cut it back to 3, and then Sam Hoiberg stepped up, goes 3 for 4 at the foul line down the stretch there. Got a good block out on Pickett to draw a foul. helped get a steal in there as well. So it's freshmen stepping up after Keisei had carried them the entire game. It was the freshmen stepping up to close this game out. And Lawrence has been kind of up and down. He's had some really nice performances since he's kind of stepped into a role. Has had a couple where he struggled. But Sam Griesel has been the story all year. But Sam Hoiberg's kind of emerged as a legitimate, useful part of this team, which I'm not sure anybody had heading into the year as a redshirt freshman walk-on and the son of the head coach.
Yeah, and that was probably going to be our main talking point if we had gone before this game. If we had hopped on to talk before this game, was the Sam Hoiberg experience in the previous two games. Jamarcus Lawrence, he got a little love from BTN analyst and former Northwestern guard Trey Demps on Twitter tonight. He just straight up said Lawrence from Nebraska is going to be a problem in the league. I don't know if I'd jump to that yet, but I definitely think that the trial by fire for a true freshman of having to jump into the starting lineup and playing big-time minutes in Big Ten competition is definitely going to be beneficial for him and for Denham Dawson in their future basketball endeavors. But I really like what I've seen from Jamarcus. He's come a long way since the start of the year, where I was making jokes about him just being out there to get cardio. He's taking and making shots, and him and Sam Hoiberg, slamming the door for good in this game by making their free ones at the line.
Yeah, I did not expect Nebraska to ever get a win this season when Griesel and Walker combined for 16 points and only make 3 buckets apiece.
Yeah, this game was kind of the antithesis of like what we talked about on the last episode. Like we talked about the importance of, with the injuries and, the depth on this roster, the importance of getting big time contributions from Griesel and Walker. And like you said, this was the exact opposite of that. And it was just 2 guys in double figures, but it worked out in the end. W's a W. Don't apologize for winning games. So.
Nope. Penn State, 38 of their 60 field goal attempts were from 3. They hit 14 of them, which is almost 37%. Heck, Seth Lundy tied the arena record for made threes in a game with 8. He shot 8 of 13, finished with 24 points. But fortunately, Keisei Tominaga was a little bit better there in that showdown, and Nebraska got a little bit more from everybody else. I mean, you look at it, Jalen Pickett, 15 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Kind of what he does. Only 1 turnover this time after Nebraska forced him into 7 turnovers at the Bryce Jordan Center. Andrew Funk, who lit Nebraska up last time, hit 5 threes. He hit 4 of them in this one, finished with 14. And then the rest of the team combined for 8 points. Mm-hmm. And I know fans were kind of freaking out, obviously, as Lundy was getting loose and knocking down all these shots. And Hoiberg even said they did adjust some in the second half to change the way that they were defending, because with Nebraska's base defense, with the combination of just the man and the switching zones they go to, and we'll talk about that as we look back at the previous 2 games to hit on a few points from those. But and with the kind of the fly around, the constant rotation where you're running guys off the line and sending them to the help, and then guys have to fly around on the backside, it's hard to keep track of any one player, because you're just thinking, all right, he's going, I got to go rotate to his man. And sometimes you end up leaving the hottest guy on the floor, and the next guy can't get there in time. And Penn State moved the ball really well against Nebraska's defense on a number of possessions and got really good looks. But as frustrating as those Lundy moments were, in general, I mean, the game plan worked out. They held them to 63 points. And like I said, outside of kind of the main guys, they got nothing from their supporting cast. And they finished with just 16 points in the paint, and a handful of those were and they only had 6 in the first half. And I think Pickett got more aggressive down the stretch, started going inside a little bit. That's where most of those came from. But they only took 4 free throws, made 1 of them. Again, Nebraska only committed 6 fouls, and easy to do when the other team's only taking 3s. And that's a lot of what happened tonight. So credit to Nebraska. I think it was probably frustrating for some fans in the moment, but in general, they executed their game plan pretty well, and they won the math battle.
Yeah, and we saw it firsthand. It may have been frustrating for fans, but it was extra frustrating for Micah Shrewsbury. He was not very talkative in the post game, and he was asked about the free throw discrepancy and the foul discrepancy, and he said that's the way it's been all year. I couldn't tell if that was him talking about Big Ten officiating or talking about what his own team's offense has been all year. Yeah. Where, like you said, you're not gonna shoot a bunch of free throws when you take a bunch of threes, and that's kind of been Penn State's MO all year, is shooting a bunch of threes. We've definitely seen it twice in the 2 games against Nebraska, and every time I've seen him, it's seemed that way too. Pickett was kind of held in check in the first half, I felt like, and then he, like you said, he got aggressive, got going down the stretch, and Funk too. So yeah, Nebraska, like I said, won the math battle, and got a win that kind of came out of nowhere. So, well, not kind of came out of nowhere. Penn State's kind of been atrocious away from home. So I was kind of puzzled going into this one, but wasn't expecting what we got. But like I said, never apologize for winning games. W is a W. And win number 11 is the most wins in a season under Fred Hoiberg. So there we are.
And there's still 7 games left in the regular season, plus the Big Ten tournament. So plenty of time here to kind of add on to that. Unfortunately, they were not able to get to that 11-win threshold previously. We mentioned they had lost 4 in a row before the Penn State win. Briefly, kind of want to touch on what happened in those 2. We'll go in chronological order there. Start with that Maryland game. That was an 82-63 win where, it was kind of a weird game. Like I think that the stats breakdown kind of tell the whole story there, where points off turnovers were 20-6, turnovers were 15-10. So that's going to be hard to overcome. And a lot of those, that led to a 22-4 edge in fast break points, because a lot of those turnovers got Maryland, and they were live ball turnovers. Maryland had, I think it was 8 steals. 8 steals in that. So more than half their turnovers were live ball. And that creates easy buckets on the other end for the other team. Second chance points were 11-5. Again, just every category. Paint was even. If Nebraska doesn't win the paint battle, chances are they're not going to have a chance to win a game. And Maryland played them even on that point and won every other category. They dominated the free throw line, 24 of 26 from the line versus only 9 of 15 for Nebraska. And this is a Nebraska team that typically does not foul a lot. Which was not the case in either of these 2 losses. And then interesting thing is in both these 2 games, Nebraska actually shot the ball fairly well from 3. It was they only made 6 of them in this game, but they were 6 of 14. Like that's 43% almost. Unfortunately, Maryland hit 8 of them. And so you just add all that up, and Nebraska just didn't have a chance. And the turnovers were kind of the overriding theme and what Hoiberg chose to talk about. But on the positive end, the Sam Hoiberg experience. We talked about kind of when he made his debut in the rotation, came off the bench there and scored those 6 points, plus 11 in his time on the floor. And with that performance, he earned himself more playing time and went out there and proceeded to score 11 straight points for Nebraska at one point. Literally the only dude scoring for them. Came in right away, hit a corner, catch and shoot corner 3 on his first possession in the right corner. And next time he caught in the left corner and Maryland big guy flew out at him, pump fake, 1 dribble pull up, knocked down the mid-range too. Then he caught a catch and shoot 3 out of the left corner on a kick from CJ Wiltshire. So 2 for 2 from 3, hit all 3 of his shots there. He stepped in there and took a charge for the second straight game. So again, putting himself putting his body on the line, getting in position and finding a way to make an impact defensively. Even though like, you don't exactly think, oh, well, let's put in the 6-foot walk-on for defense. But that actually is what happened in the next game, but we'll get to that in a minute. then next bucket, it kind of lifted up to the left wing as Sam Griesel ran a pick and roll, kind of hooked the pass around to him. And again, catch and shoot, let it fly, no hesitation, and knocked it down. So at that point, it was 29-24, and Sam Hoiberg sat down after scoring 11 straight points for Nebraska. And like, if you know Sam, his game in high school, he was much more of a driver, using his athleticism, physicality. The 3-point shot was pretty streaky. Wasn't a great percentage shooter. So to come out here knocking down shots, I know when I talked to him after he committed, like that was a huge part of what he was going to be focusing on. It's like, I got to be a knockdown 3-point shooter. He just had to clean that up, and looking pretty good. He had some, obviously the air ball, I think, in that first game. The other one kind of rimmed out, but had it locked in this game. Got back in later in the game. And took it right to the rim and scored, I believe. And then, the drive was later on. The next one was another jumper where Derek Walker skipped it to him in the left corner and made him. And this is impressive. Like, Derek's pass was off target, made him like relocate and move further down in the corner. It pulled him up to the 3-point line, so it ended up being a long 2, but off the movement, catch and shoot, let it go. Again, just great performance from him in this game. Give them a chance. Finished with 15 points on 6 of 8 shooting. Hit all 3 of his threes. 3 rebounds, just 1 turnover. Played 26 minutes in that game because for stretches he was literally the only guy that could score the ball. So, and then Derek Walker had 16 points, 8 boards. This time stayed out of foul trouble, which had been a problem before in the game after, but also had 5 turnovers. And they just never really got anybody else going. I mean, Jamarcus Lawrence, 7 points, 3 of 4 shooting, hit a 3, 3 assists in there. But Griesel, 6 assists. I thought he was distributing it well with 8 points, but the turnovers just were too much to overcome. And I mean, they cut it down to they were down 40-30 at halftime, and Maryland extended it to open the half, including a few more turnovers, but Nebraska got down to 9, and then they went over. Maryland went on a 15-2 run in 3.5 minutes, and that was ball game at that point. So again, turnovers in this one. Sam good. The Sam Hoiberg story continued, but turnovers cost them, did them in, made it too hard to defend these guys. And it wasn't any one guy killing them. The problem was a guy like Don Carey, not a great 3-point shooter, going 4 for 4 from the line, scoring 16 points. But we did start to see Nebraska continuing to be more aggressive and versatile on defense. We saw the 1-3-1, the 2-3, kind of mixed results. They got some success out of it, but they also had some breakdowns and gave up some things. But that was kind of the story of that Maryland game. Anything else kind of stick out to you?
Not really. Yeah, more so just the Sam Hoiberg coming out party. Turnovers were definitely the killer. And that theme continued on the trip to Champaign. So,
yeah, 72-56 game loss at Illinois. Obviously, they lost by 26 at home. So progress, I guess. Yay.
Maybe
they were in position to cover, and then Illinois closed the game on the 9-0 run. Actually, closed the game on an even bigger run than that, but we'll get to that in a second because Nebraska, they made it competitive. Fred chose to start Sam Hoiberg in the starting lineup in place of Keisei for defensive purposes because they wanted to, I think, just have more versatility to let put Jamarcus Lawrence on Terrence Shannon right and
have Denham on Meyer. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that probably Hoiberg getting a little too cute there. Sam played 11 minutes, 1 rebound, 1 steal, 1 turnover, missed his only shot, a little floater early on. So the magic didn't continue, wasn't a big part of this game, but he did make his first career start, and he earned it because he had been one of Nebraska's 5 best players over the previous 2 games.
Absolutely.
Whereas Sam Hoiberg was the story of the last game. This one, it was Sam Griesel who did his best to put the team on his back and give them a chance to compete in this one. Their first 17 points, he scored 15 himself and assisted Derek on the other 2.
Yep.
So like he aggressive and he was letting it fly from 3, stepping in, showing no hesitation. I think he took 4 threes. It might have been.
Took 5.
Well, I mean,
in the first half. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, no, just like no hesitation, and Hoiberg praised him for it after the game. In particular, it's like if they're gonna go under, like you got to show no hesitation, and he didn't. And by knocking a few of them down, it made it a little easier for him to get to the rim, get downhill later on in the half. And he was aggressive, scoring it all the same Griesel ways. Some of the posts, some really strong drives to the rim. And you're thinking, all right, this is a chance. And kind of what I wrote after this game is it showed how small the margin for error is, and by small I mean non-existent. You got Sam Griesel being one of the best players on the floor. You got Illinois shooting 5 of 29 from 3. That's 17.2%. And you got good perimeter shooting overall. Nebraska shot 40% from 3. You had Tominaga off the bench who scored 11, and even CJ Wilcher scored 8 off the bench. Those 2 combined to go 5 of 8 from 3. So you got your shooters hitting shots. You've got Sam being one of the best players on the floor. But Derek Walker, just one of his worst games of the season. 6 more turnovers, scored 8 points, but fouled out in just 23 minutes. And had 3 or 4 turnovers right away to start the second half as Illinois made a run. And Nebraska, despite kind of Derek's struggles and the foul trouble that he had to deal with and everything, they actually took a lead, 50-48, with a 9-0 run. Threes, with two from Keisei and 1 from CJ Wilcher, to take the lead at 50-48 with 11:57 to play. And then Illinois outscored them 24-6 the rest of the way. Would you like to hear Nebraska's offensive stats for the last 12 minutes of the game?
Yeah, lay them on me.
2 of 14 from the field, 0 of 5 from 3, 2 of 2 from the line. Whoa, 100%. And 5 turnovers. So they scored on 3 possessions in the last 12 minutes of the game.
Another way to put it is the fact that they scored as many points in the second half as they had turnovers for the entire game, which is not a recipe for success. That number is 19, by the way. 19 second half points, 19 turnovers for the game. Not a good recipe.
Yeah, and those 6 points I mentioned that they scored, all from Sam Griesel. Nobody else scored. And their last field goal, I forgot when I marked it down at some point, but I don't see it now. But yeah, Griesel scored their last bucket with a lot of time left, and then they never made another shot. He scored a couple of free throws later in the game, but that was it. So just a brutal finish to that game where you got a lot of things going your way, and you still somehow end up with a 16-point loss in a game where they had a second half lead. So again, that points to the margin for error. You had a few guys. Griesel was on, Keisei was on, CJ was on, but Derek Walker was not on, and they couldn't maintain pace because of it.
Yeah, their last point was a mid free throw by Griesel at the 4:43 mark. Their last made field goal was a 3 from Wilhelm with 7:52 to go in the game, according to the ESPN play-by-play. Oh, no, I'm lying. It was a Derek Walker layup with 6:20 to play. I scrolled right over that.
Well, I think you're looking at the wrong game. We're on Illinois here.
Yeah, I'm looking at Illinois.
Wilhelm didn't make a 3, and
then what is ESPN on? Sorry, I'm not looking at ESPN's play-by-play ever again. They are on some. Yeah, no, I'm looking at Nebraska, Illinois, and reading straight from it. So I tried to share information, and ESPN said, no, we don't give you real info.
6:27 mark of the second half, Sam Griesel layup on a fast break was their last field goal of the game.
Yeah, they have that listed as a miss on ESPN. So
that's incredible.
Yep. So that is that's where we're at. ESPN. Thanks, ESPN. I wanted to contribute. I wanted to help my friend and give him the information he didn't have, but ESPN said, nah, no thanks.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, again, the turnovers, that huge part of the story there. It was 19 turnovers for actually Illinois also turned the ball over 13 times and only outscored Nebraska by 1 in points off turnovers. But you take care of the ball there while forcing turnovers. Now suddenly that's an advantage for you, and then you can maybe offset some deficiencies in other parts of the game where Illinois went 17 for 22 at the foul line and Nebraska was only 8 for 10. So that's 48 free throws in 2 games for a team with an incredibly low foul rate against. So that was a problem for Nebraska. They were putting teams at the line, and then the turnovers in the last. So the Penn State game obviously started the losing streak. They only had 9 turnovers in that game, but in the 3 games in between, they had 50 of them. Looking at this last Penn State game, they only had 7 turnovers. The thing is, though, Penn State isn't a team that forces turnovers. They're one of the worst in the country at that. So it's hard to know what to make of that in terms of, is it problem fixed or is it just simply a defense that doesn't force turnovers? And Nebraska, at the very least, Nebraska cleaned up some of the careless stuff that had led to the high turnover count, so that it ended up not being something that killed them in this game where it has the last 2. That has to continue. They cannot have a high turnover rate if they want a chance to compete, because then suddenly your defense just has no shot. And we know how hard it is for them to score points at this point. So if you're looking at this last win as like looking for positive trends, that's a one where you, I think, be cautiously optimistic about that, where, all right, they fixed some things. They took better care of the ball. And now let's see if they can do that on the road moving forward, because they have a trip to Ann Arbor coming up to take on the Wolverines for the first time this season.
Yeah, that game is going to be on Wednesday night, 5:30 tip on BTN. Chrysler Arena is one of the 2 road venues in the Big Ten that the program has not won in since they joined the conference. There's only 2 left. One is Chrysler and the other is Mackey. Michigan, they have the most humble, likable man in the league. That is very sarcastic, but his name is Hunter Dickinson. He is definitely their big, literally and figuratively, their biggest point on the scouting report. The 7'1" junior. He's averaging 17.7 points and 8.3 boards on the season. He also has been very humble on his very high quality podcast all season long. That was a lie as well. Has
he promised a win in this one yet?
Not yet. I'm sure he might say some out of line stuff between now and Wednesday. I don't know, but no, we're not going to give any free plugs to a show that involves him and Jordan Bohannon at the same time. We're not going to do that. But outside of Hunter, Jet Howard, son of the coach, five-star recruit, shooter. Those are their two leading scorers. Kobe Buffkin, he had a pretty good game today against Ohio State. When I was tuned in, there's Juwan's other son doesn't play nearly as much, but he's on the team too. Former Duke Blue Devil Joey Baker is also on this team. He is averaging just 5 points a game. And then a guy that we got to watch up close last year at the Heartland Hoops Classic, Terrace Reed Jr. is a freshman forward who's averaging 3 points a game, 3 rebounds in 11 minutes played. And then there's also
Nebraska target Terrace Reed.
No, Nebraska target Terrace Reed. There's also Doug, spelled D-U-G. That's I've called him just D-U-G, Doug. That's Doug McDaniel. And then, that's kind of what I know about Michigan. They have some very highly regarded recruits on this team. That was kind of one of the questions that got left on the cutting room floor when we talked to Titus was how has Juwan Howard made Michigan basketball irrelevant while still signing 5-star recruits? That was something that got left on the cutting room floor. Michigan's sitting at 13-10, 7-5 in the league. They're like one of the few teams that has barely been even mentioned on the bubble for the Big Ten when talking about the tournament because they really don't have any good wins. That's just something they don't have. They beat Ohio State today. Ohio State's bad. They beat Northwestern by 17 in their previous game. They beat Northwestern twice. Not many teams can say that, but that's kind of the best they've got going for them.
Yeah.
Looking up and down their schedule. So
they beat Penn State, but Nebraska may have just knocked Penn State entirely off the bubble. With this last win, they beat Maryland, but I don't even know what Maryland is.
Michigan beat Maryland, but Maryland also beat Michigan by 40 at one point. Or no, I forget if it was flip-flopped. No, it was flip-flopped. Yeah. Maryland beat Michigan by 40, and then Michigan beat Maryland. That was what happened. But if you haven't learned by now, listen to us. Big Ten weird. There's currently a 6-way tie at 7-5. Looking at the Big Ten standings, Purdue, Rutgers, and then a 6-way tie at 7-5 between Iowa, Maryland, Northwestern, Indiana, Michigan, and Illinois. And then after the trip. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, again, one of the stats that I always look for, Michigan, 331st in the country in opponent turnover rate. So this is not a team that forces turnovers. They also don't turn the ball over. They're 5th in the country in taking care of the ball, which is kind of how they are top 50 in offense because they're pretty average from both 3-point percentage and 2-point percentage, but they don't actually crash the offensive glass that hard. Only about a quarter of their possessions, which is below average. 293rd in the country.
Especially when you have a giant human on your team too. But
they don't turn the ball over, and so and they defend pretty well. They're tough to score on. They're 65th in opponent 3-point percentage. They're 131st in 2-point percentage. They don't foul a ton, which is probably good for Nebraska because. Yeah, it's hard for them to score from the free throw line. But yeah, and Hoiberg said in the Penn State game, Blaise Keita did not play. It wasn't continuing rehab. It was a coach's decision. Hoiberg said he's as healthy as he has been since suffering the injury. His jumping numbers are back to where they were previously, and there's a good chance that you'll see Keita when Nebraska heads up there to battle with big Mr. Hutchinson on the block because Penn State's backup 5 was the 6'4" Miles Dredd. Probably not a great matchup to try to have Blaise out there chasing him around. So
Fred made it sound like we'll see Blaise and Oleg. He said Blaise and Oleg we're going to get chances.
Those guys have to be ready at the very least.
Absolutely.
Especially with Wilhelm struggling the way he did. It was good to see him knock down that jumper in the first half. It was only bucket of the game, but it'll be all hands on deck for the guys that are now healthy. Your 9 healthy scholarship players plus Sam Hoiberg. So the mighty Hoiberg 10 ready to go as
the fighting Freds. They're heading up to Ann Arbor. We don't know when we'll talk to you next, but just to set the table after Michigan, Wisconsin comes to town. you could set the total at 110 for this game, and I may consider taking the under on it. Wisconsin played Northwestern this evening up in Madison and lost 54-52. When we both looked at our finished our game stories in the workroom after the game, you looked at the score, and the score was in the 40s at the under 8 media timeout.
Under
and I
4.
said, at the under 4, yep. And I said, that is disgusting. That sounds repulsive. Nebraska is only one game behind Wisconsin in the loss column in the league. Wisconsin is 5-7 in the conference, 13-9 overall. They are a weird group. They were in the top 25 preseason. They are led, of course, by Bellevue West's own Chucky Hepburn. If you didn't like the Chucky Hepburn homecoming stories the last time Wisconsin played here, get ready. They may be coming soon again on Saturday. But Chucky is leading the way for Wisconsin. He's averaging 12, 3-3. They've got 4 guys averaging in double figures, and from what I've gathered watching them, those are the only 4 guys on their team who know how to score. So it's no coincidence that Chucky, Stephen Crowell, Tyler Wall, and Connor Esiason, the freshman from Fort Wayne, who's got a funny-looking face. I'll just say that. Those are the only guys on the team who average in double figures, and they're the only guys that I've seen that can score. Because as you can tell by some of these score lines for Wisconsin, they don't score a whole lot. There are a lot of final scores in the 50s. Even in the 40s in looking down Wisconsin's schedule. So Michigan and Wisconsin are next on the docket. Something to look forward to if you're a Nebraska fan. This Penn State game that we just watched today was the first weekend conference game since the Purdue game. There are 3 weekend home games left. They've only got 4 home games left on the season, and 3 of the 4 are on the weekend. So make your plans to get out to PBA. It was cool to see a little juice in there today with the result and people not having to get off work or hurry from work to get to the game. So that was something I realized today, is that there are 3 weekend home games left. So that's what's coming soon, and some things to look forward to.
Yeah. So if Nebraska finds a way to knock off Michigan in Ann Arbor, we will effort a reaction podcast to that sometime before Saturday's game. So we're looking at maybe a Thursday or a Friday recording. If that game goes as projections here, Nebraska ends up losing, we'll probably just let it ride through the Wisconsin game and react to both those as one. I will not be there in person for that Wisconsin game, so I'll have to watch the replay back before we record on that one. I'll be covering some high school hoops out in Grand Island, unfortunately. As someone who watched Chucky Hepburn come up through, obviously, Bellevue West, and saw him playing in 8th grade and everything, like I enjoy seeing him play, but just kind of worked out the way the schedule played out there with the Heartland Hoops Classic being on the same day as the Wisconsin home game. So that's what we're looking at. Either you can expect a podcast to break down a win at Michigan, or if that does not go well, then we'll probably get back together next weekend and maybe another Sunday recording for a Monday release, something like that.
Yeah, we'll play it by ear, but definitely it was a pleasant surprise to get on here and be able to talk about a win. We were kind of worried after the way those 2 games before today went, but we're happy to get on here, talk about a win. Like Jacob said, we'll play it by ear on the next episode. As I say every time, we appreciate everybody tuning in, leaving us good feedback. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, leave a review on Apple, Spotify, Google, whatever your platform of choice is. We appreciate any and all feedback, and we appreciate everybody who listens. Go check out Jacob's work, HillVarsity.com, Hillvarsity the magazine. His weekly column, as I've said before, is a must-read. Padding the Stats, go check it out. It's getting close to, it may only be February, but, we just wrapped up signing day. Spring football right around the corner. Baseball, everything. End of the basketball season. It's all coming. Check out HillVarsity.com, HillVarsity the magazine. Go check out my game story from this game. It'll be up on HuskersIllustrated.com. My monthly column on the state of Nebraska basketball will be coming soon as well. I'll do a little bit of a deep dive into the program and everything and the state of everything, kind of getting toward big picture talk season. As we get toward the end of the year, we may try to wrangle some new voices to talk big picture with us before the end of the season. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned to the pod. Stay tuned for Jacob's work, everything. Go follow us on Twitter, the whole deal. But until next week, this has been the Nebraska Shootaround podcast.